what we're going to do is key seminar topics. We're going to talk about core concepts, macronutrients, micronutrients, how important they are, what they do for you, how lifestyle factors influence your nutrition, everything from sleep, stress, recovery, all of that stuff, and then some strategies to help you, things that you're going to be able to take with you today, things about meal prep, portion control, making healthy choices, all of that stuff. Now, you will get a packet after this. All of you, I will send in an email that covers all of the stuff that we've talked about today, as well as some like infographics and things like that that you can apply as well after you leave here today. So you can take notes as well if you want still, because there might be some things that we talk about question-wise that we don't really necessarily get into in here. So, but what is nutrition? Basically, it's how your body absorbs, utilizes, and reacts to nutrients, energy, and food that you eat daily. It is, of course, lifestyle factors as well. How you move, what you eat, your stress management, your sleep, your recovery, all of that stuff. So nutrition involves not only the types, but the amounts, timing of your food, and all of that stuff. Like I said, lifestyle impacts that as well. So hit the button. We're going to talk about controllable inputs, how these factors directly manage things, calories in versus calories out. We're going to touch on all of that fun stuff as well. So, wow, did that get messed up? So, macronutrients, all right? We're going to talk about the three types, proteins, fats, and carbs, and how they fit into your nutrition and what they do for you, all right? So, protein, building muscles, boosts immune function, keeps you fueled longer, all right? Carbs serve as the body's main source of energy. So when we eat carbs, we're going to get into the types of carbs and everything like that. But carbs are, people would say, is the one that is the non-essential of the macronutrients. You don't need carbs, but it is the most efficient way for your body to get fuel, all right? And then fats, they're vital for hormone production, nutrient absorption, and long-term energy. And we're going to get into these a little bit more. So protein, the building block, right? Vital for repairing muscle after exercise and maintaining lean body tissue for strength and health, all right? Great for satiety and appetite control. So when you eat these, they keep you fuller longer, all right? When we buy things at the store with protein bars, meals, anything like that, one of the things to look for is protein content, right? So a good gauge is for every 100 calories, you should have 10 grams of protein. So about 10%, all right, is like the bottom line with that. So anything less than that, you can't say that it's, you know, protein packed. So your body burns more calories digesting protein than any other of the macronutrients. So if you eat 100 calories of protein, your body is going to actually need 20 to 30% of those calories just digesting it. So compared to like carbs and fats, which are much lower. And then many adults that underconsume protein, their overall health and well-being can start to go down. So now your body uses protein for, of course, more than muscle stuff. It's going to go towards immune system, cell regeneration, hair regeneration, like that kind of stuff. So, and it will go to that first before helping you recover from like workouts and things like that. So carbs, we want to fuel for performance, all right? So it is the main energy source that we're going to use. We're going to get into the types of carbs here in a second, but we always want to adjust the carb intake for how sedentary or active we are. all right? So if we're more active, we can eat more carbs, and we're gonna talk about carb timing a little bit more later. But also when we're stressed and things that need recovery, we also need carbs. After a long workout, getting protein and carbs in to replenish that glycogen and energy. And carbs are not good or bad, all right? Now, types of carbs you put into your body, obviously there's nutrient dense, right? Fruits, vegetables, and things like that. And then there's other stuff, right? White bread, things like that that are just fast digesting, gives you immediate energy, and then crashes the sweets, the cakes, and stuff like that that don't have a whole lot of nutrients. So, and we're talking about that a little bit more, and choosing those based on your lifestyle, right? So simple versus complex carbs. So simple carbs have the short sugar chains, they digest quickly, and they provide immediate energy. So think you're going into a workout, it's 30 minutes before a workout, I need to get something to eat. Simple carbs are going to give you that quick, immediate energy, all right? Now, if you eat that during the day and you're sedentary, that could be one of those like spike, crash, right? Whereas complex carbs digest slower, provide lasting energy. So potatoes, rice, beans, things with fiber in them, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here shortly, will keep you fuller longer and give you energy longer. So if we're sedentary, long periods of time, we want to avoid those simple carbs because it's going to give you those spike, crash, right? Now fats, essential, all right? We don't want to avoid fats. We need them. So they support hormone production, cellular function. They absorb the fat-soluble vitamins. So your doctor says, hey, take this with a meal. You need to take it with a meal because it needs those fats to absorb more of those vitamins. All right? Now it is high calorie, right? Smaller portions are going to be higher calorie than something like protein and carbs. So when we get into that a little bit later about talking about how much we should be eating, we got to remember that fats, smaller portions, higher calories, right? So fats and inflammatory, so there's unhealthy fats. When you look at like fried foods, lots of inflammatory right there. High processed trans fat fried foods increase the inflammation, and then they're not good with, when you're dealing with stress, trying to sleep, all that stuff. So healthy fats that we'll get from like avocados, nuts, seeds, fatty fish, those help with recovery and your metabolic health, all right? Now you do need pro-inflammatory and anti-inflammatory. So anti-inflammatory after a workout help you recover. Pro-inflammatory, if we didn't have that, you cut yourself, you bleed out, right? The pro-inflammatory stuff is what gives you that lets that blood, what's that? Blood clotting, yes. So, thank you, Rebecca. So, eating more protein, some carbs, and less fats, right? Protein, prioritizing the protein intake keeps you fuller longer, helps with that muscle repair, recovery, and satiety. We're going to get into portion control and everything like that a little bit later, but including carbs when you need the energy, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, right? I'm not saying you can't have a cookie or a piece of cake, right? But balance with that, and then limiting fats by volume. And we're going to talk about some of the types and everything a little bit later. But having that flexible and mindful approach to what we're going to be eating, all right? So again, we're going to talk a little bit more about some of this stuff later, but so far, do we have any questions on any of the macronutrients and their roles that they play in our... Nothing?
You said early on, I think it was about how it'll go somewhere first before it starts to muscles.
Yeah, so muscles are a very expensive tissue, all right? Now, when we're doing weight training and things like that, we need to make sure we have increased protein. Our body, when it's trying to decide where these protein and everything should go, right? It's going to go towards those more essential functions of keeping our body moving and functioning before it goes to the more expensive things like muscle tissue and things like that. So if we're eating a very low protein diet, we're not going to be having a lot of that protein going towards the recovery and building of muscle as much as it's going to go towards keeping the rest of our body functioning properly. That make sense? Anyone else? Whoop. All right, macronutrients. So think macronutrients are going to be kind of calories. Calories determine like your weight. Macronutrients will determine kind of like what you look like. Micronutrients are going to determine how you feel, all right? So micronutrients being vitamins and minerals, they're only really needed in small amounts to support essential body functions and maintain your overall health, all right? Energy production, nervous system health, strengthening your immune system, and promoting well-being and resilience. Deficiencies, you'll have lower energy, muscle cramps, brain fog, fatigue, even increased illness. You get sick when you don't have a whole lot of micronutrients in you, all right? So even with enough calories and eating a lot, if you're not eating nutrient-dense foods, so stuff packed with the vitamins and minerals, and you're eating the high-processed foods, easier to get sick, all right? Now we have water and fat soluble. Again, doctor says you need to take this with food. The fat needs to take those vitamins and minerals to where they need to go in your body. Water soluble, same thing. So fat soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K. And then water soluble like your B vitamins and vitamin C. All right, so water ones dissolve in water. Those are not stored extensively. So if you do eat more than you need, you will usually pee that out. So, and then of course, regular intake of water is needed with those. And then vitamins and minerals, again, especially during like stress, physical activity, when you're sick, which we'll talk about a little bit later as well, definitely increasing those vitamins and minerals as well. Importance, of course, the absorption difference that we talked about. Dietary factors matter. Digestion, hydration that we talked about, and then whole foods that we just talked about as well, the vitamin, the nutrient-dense foods. Now supplements, when it comes to like deficiencies and things like that, we talked about like some of the side effects of not getting it, brain fog and things like that. Now, if you're experiencing that, there's different vitamins and minerals that can help that. Now, what I always recommend is getting blood work done if you are really feeling bad and getting an exact, like, you are deficient in this before just going, oh, I need to take this, oh, I need to take that, and throwing money away on stuff that you don't need, right? Now, when it does come to supplements, it's not supposed to be a replacement. It's supposed to be something to help, right? I always recommend any supplements that you're going to take, of course, being third-party tested. Now, what third-party tested means is that they actually pay to send it out to a company and test what it is, and they're going to say, yes, this has this much protein, this much vitamins, this much whatever inside of it, all right? The FDA doesn't regulate any of these, so if it's not third-party tested and it says something like proprietary blend, and it says it's, fiber rich or vitamin C rich or whatever it might say in there. It might not be. It might have a little bit in there and they don't have to give the numbers on what's in it. So third party tested and just any reputable company. Might be a little bit more expensive, but definitely worth it. High impact micronutrients, fiber, along with protein, regulates blood sugar, promotes satiety. So protein and fiber are the two things that are going to keep you fuller longer. Sodium and potassium maintain fluid balance, enable nerve signaling, and proper muscle contraction. Magnesium is going to help you relax. So after working out, it's going to improve your sleep quality and help you manage stress effectively. And then iron and calcium, crucial for oxygen transport and energy production. And then, of course, you guys know calcium strengthens the bones and supports muscle contraction. Questions so far on micronutrients? Nothing? All right. Hydration. All right, so not just about hitting daily targets, which I always recommend. About half your body weight in ounces is a good place to start. All right, but even under mild dehydration can affect your energy, your well-being, and your physical performance. All right, so proper hydration supports blood flow, temperature regulation, joint health, digestion, nutrient absorption that we just talked about, as well as sharp thinking. So dehydration, you're sitting at your desk all day, haven't had a whole lot of water, gonna be one of those things that can help make you not feel very well and like sleepy and not thinking properly at your desk. All right, so even mild dehydration also leads to endurance and decreased strength. So drinking enough before a workout, right? We don't want to just slam down like 32 ounces of water right before a workout and have that water sitting inside of us. We want to fuel early enough before that workout. All right. Increase perceived effort. So cause the workouts to feel harder, raising the perceived effort. So your training intensity seems a lot harder. And then of course, staying hydrated, crucial for that peak performance. So it also boosts recovery. Again, transferring those nutrients, supporting the muscle cells. Creatine, one of those supplements that I always recommend. Lots of different benefits besides just muscle. Helps with brain function. We take that with water. Water drives a lot of stuff into the cells, all right? Aids in the nervous system recovery, supports the nervous system, promoting faster and more effective recovery from the physical activity. And then it's going to help prevent the soreness and fatigue as well. Thirst versus hunger. Sometimes when we feel hungry, we are actually thirsty. So a lot of people might go, oh, I need a snack, I feel hungry, when sometimes you got to stop and think, have I had enough water today? All right. So dehydration increases those cravings. So if you really haven't eaten a whole lot, you haven't drank a whole lot, and you've been moving around a whole lot, your body's going to tell you that you're hungry. And your cravings are going to be for that immediate energy. So you're going to think, I need that sugar. I need that simple carb to give me that immediate energy. And that's what a lot of people go for, right? So they go to the vending machine, they get that candy bar, they're provided that immediate energy. 30 minutes later, they crash, right? Questions so far on hydration? Yes.
Is it true that if you drink too much, maybe not too much water, but like in one sitting, that it'll actually flush out like more of the nutrients?
Maybe not so much in one sitting. You can definitely overhydrate, which I think is on the next slide. Yes. So you can absolutely, definitely overhydrate and drink too much. So if we drink a lot of water and not balance it out with like electrolytes and things like that, then yes, we can actually like flush some of this stuff out of our system. Some of those like vitamins that we've been having. But a lot of people make the mistake of, one, we want to drink water immediately in the morning. So one of the good habits of having is like water before coffee, right? We're going to talk about building healthy habits and things that we can do later on. But ignoring thirst signals, right? A lot of you people carry water bottles with you, some with like the gallon thing on there with like the different notches of like keeping track of it throughout the day. Great to do. It's a good way to know exactly how much water you've drank throughout the day. If you're not like tracking your water intake, it's very hard to remember how much water you've had. So it's a good thing to do early on if you feel like you're not getting enough water, all right? Now, when we are trying to hydrate ourselves, we want to make sure we're getting the right drinks, right? So if you're sitting at a desk all day and you reach for like a regular Gatorade, because it's promoted as like hydration, right? It's also full of sugar. So you're sitting at a desk all day, eating a sugary drink, think of that like simple carb. It's going to give you that energy, but you're not using that energy performance-wise in the gym, right? So your body's going to absorb that and use it differently than if you were going to drink that Gatorade and then hit a CrossFit workout, right? And then the imbalance of electrolytes. So you drink too much water and not enough of that like sodium, potassium, magnesium, things like that. It disrupts the nerve signals and muscle function as well. Questions?
Do you recommend adding like those watery things to just drinking just
Like
water?
like an LMNT or any of those things? Yes. Now, how much you need is definitely going to depend on your activity level, how hot it is outside. Definitely in the summer, if you sweat a lot, even in the cold weather working out, your body's just, mine's a furnace. It can be 0 degrees outside and I'll still be pouring sweat in a workout. Then yes, you're going to want to increase the sodium amount, right? So people usually need, average people need about 2,000 milligrams of sodium a day, just regular, right? If you're not eating processed foods and you're eating whole natural foods, not canned things with a lot of like the salt and preservatives and things like that inside of it, it's kind of hard to get enough sodium in the day, right? So putting that into like a gallon of water and sipping on throughout the day could help with your energy levels as well. I've had people say after lunch, I get this energy crash, don't feel very good. They have some electrolytes. It boosts their cognitive function, gives them a little bit more energy, and they can go about their day. Something that you experience?
Well, yes, but
Yeah.
okay, so those packets. I know you just mentioned sodium.
Yes.
The main thing in there, I've never actually looked at it.
Yeah.
Like sodium.
It is mainly sodium, yes. So you want to look at how much of each thing is in those. So yes, LMT has 1,000 milligrams of sodium, which could be excessive for someone who is sedentary, sitting around all day, eating ultra-processed foods. It could definitely add more to their sodium intake that they don't need. Someone who's outside a lot, construction worker, laborer, you know, outside cutting the grass all day, even in cold weather like this, go to the beach, even on a chilly day, like you might not be sweating, but you are still getting dehydrated sitting in the sun. All right. So looking at your intake levels is going to turn like activity levels, what you're doing, how much you're sweating, increase or decrease the amount of sodium that you're going to take. Good? That answer? Well, hopefully I'll answer some more of those questions as we go. We just talked a lot about this, the electrolytes, heavy sweating, heat, prolonged intense things. So adequate electrolyte levels are necessary to sustain muscle function and prevent cramps and fatigue. So taking it before a workout can be helpful. If you haven't really like eaten a lot of food and gotten nutrients and things, taking it as like a pre-workout can definitely help fuel you and feel better during that workout. That answers some questions. All right, recovery. So recovery is sleep, stress management, all kinds of different things when it comes to recovery. All right, so good sleep is crucial for recovery. This is when your body repairs itself. You come into the gym, you work out. This is when your muscle tissues break down, your cells and everything. We like give our body stress, right? When we sleep, that is when our body starts to repair itself, okay? So we'll talk about that a little bit more. Balanced nutrition and effective stress management through relaxation techniques, which we're gonna talk about here in a second as well. So sleep, hormone balance and appetite control. So sleep regulates hunger hormones, which reduces cravings and maintains a healthy appetite. It's good for, again, like I just said, muscle repair and physical recovery. You need that quality sleep. Gives you time for your body to repair those muscles. We only get 4 hours of sleep, not a lot of recovery. Doesn't give our body time to rebuild that muscle tissue, and we go into a workout that next morning, our performance is going to definitely decline, all right? So, and then cognitive function as well. How many of you guys get 3-4 hours of sleep and then there's brain fog the next morning, right? Questions on sleep? Of course, everyone's probably heard we recommend 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Quality sleep is always good too. So, well, we're going to talk about some habits and things like that a little bit later on of like how to get good sleep. Right now, everything we're talking about is just like basic functions and what it does for us. Questions? All right, stress. Right? Body doesn't really know the difference between different stress things. Working out, stressing about work, right? Stressing about relationship, things like that. So it results from physical effort, work pressures, emotional strain, mental overload, all that stuff. Chronic stress increases the body demands, hinders recovery, disrupts your appetite, and reduces the optimal performance. All right? Managing stress is vital for preventing burnout, boosting your well-being, and then achieving long-term productivity. So we're going to get into some stress management things later on, but high stress, tension, right, has effects on our nervous system, our blood flow, all of that stuff. People can be healthy, work out, all this stuff, do everything they need to do, but people actually have heart attacks just from how stressed they are, not because they're eating unhealthy, right? So it actually like constricts your blood flow, those things that cause the issues with heart attacks and different ailments. Misconceptions. Definitely, again, like we said, need for athletic improvement. It's beyond just taking supplements. When we look at stress and recovery, yes, things like ice baths, sauna, cold plunge, like that kind of stuff is good, but we want to look at other things when it comes to recovery before all of that stuff. Are we eating well? Are we sleeping well? That kind of stuff. Any questions so far about recovery and the importance of it? No? Good so far? All right. Energy balance. Calories in versus calories out, right? So we want to match our intake with our energy levels, right? What we're doing throughout the day. We're sitting all day, not consuming a whole lot of energy. We don't need to consume as much energy as like someone who is out doing active labor work, on their feet, all that kind of stuff. So having that calorie awareness for your goals, understanding how many calories you need helps customize your diets, meets your personal health and performance goals, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Calorie value. So calories are just the basic measurement of energy needed for the body, supporting your energy needs, supporting your daily activities, and your lifestyle choices. So again, someone who is more active is going to need more calories throughout the day than someone who just sits. So all of these things got messed up. That is understanding TDEE. That is the total daily energy expenditure. All right, this is how much calories your body needs throughout the day for everything, including your bodily functions. All right, a lot of factors go into and affect your daily energy expenditure. Physical activity, stress, sleep, and just your overall lifestyle. And it's not constant, and it can change every single day. So we just kind of have an average that we go with. All right, so 4 parts of it. All right, so first one, and for some reason my graph got a little bit messed up. So BMR is the biggest thing with your calories every day. All right, 60 to 70% of the calories you burn every day is based on your BMR. All right, BMR supports your essential functions like breathing, circulation, and energy, resting energy. Then your NEAT, which is non-exercise activity, things like fidgeting, walking around, doing your daily tasks, doing your chores around the house, things like that. That is about 15% of your calories burned every day. Thermic effect of food, digesting the food. Again, we talked about protein. Out of 100 calories, your body takes 20 to 30% of that. 20 to 30 calories just digesting protein. Carbs are going to be less. It's going to be, if it's simple carbs, like 5%. And then fats will be around like 10% of those calories are needed to digest that food. So, but that is 10% about of your daily expenditure. The least amount, your exercise. Only 5% of the calories you burn every day is from your exercise. All right? So very important to remember as we continue going on through this. So it's dynamic, like I said. It changes, it'll fluctuate every day based on what you're doing. BMR is your basic bodily function needs. If you lay in bed all day, how many calories does your body need to just lay there and function? Breathing, blood circulation, all of that stuff, all right? Most important thing. Stress, undereating, poor sleep, all of that stuff is going to affect your NEAT, all right? The less energy you have, the less you're moving around, the lower calories your NEAT is going to be for the day. Eat less, move more, right? Reduced food intake can decrease the energy and increase your cravings. So excess exercise may raise your stress limits as well. And then stress, sleep, and food quality all play critical roles in effective and healthy energy balance. Questions on the daily expenditure so far? Yes. We're going to get into that here in a moment. Yes. So, we're going to get here in a little bit. But, biggest way to increase your BMR is to increase your muscle mass. All right? The more muscle you have on your body, the more calories your body is going to burn naturally throughout the day. All right? So regular resistance training is going to promote that. Higher calorie burn throughout the day. Now, again, I said muscle is a very expensive tissue. If we are not resistance training and giving our body that muscle building signal, and we do a bunch of cardio where we don't do anything at all, your body's going to say, hey, we don't need this muscle. We're not using it. Let's get rid of it. All right? We're getting into that a little bit later. So calories in versus calories out. Problems with calories in, right? One of the biggest things is food labels. The FDA allows up to a 20% difference, right? So something that says 100 calories per serving can actually be 80 calories or 120 calories. All right? Yeah. One of the things, I had someone tell me, Pete, I can't lose weight. I'm doing all this stuff. I asked them about their nutrition, what they were doing, and I found, you know, the butter spray, right? It says 0 calories per serving. One serving is one spray. Well, if it's under, I want to say 8 calories per serving, you can round down to 0. They were putting 3 or 4 sprays on their broccoli, 3 or 4 sprays on their baked potato, 3 or 4 sprays on this. That adds up quick, right? 5 sprays at 5 calories is 25 calories. 25 calories on the baked potato, 25 calories on the broccoli, 25 calories on their chicken. That is now 75 more calories just in one meal, right? And if you're trying to hit a 500 calorie deficit every day, everyone knows 500 calories a day times 7 days, 3,500 calories. 3,500 calories is about where you need to be to lose 1 pound of fat, right? So 75 calories in one meal, times that by 3 meals, right? You're at over 200 calories just in butter spray. So we don't absorb all the nutrients we consume, right? Everyone's eating corn, right? I don't really need to go much further than that, right? If we don't chew our food all the way, if we have big chunks of food that we swallow, your body is not going to absorb all of the nutrients that we eat, all right? It's going to pass through our system undigested. We're not going to absorb all those nutrients. We're not going to absorb all those calories. So yes, that might be less calories that you think you're eating, not more, but less energy, less nutrients, all right? Everyone absorbs calories differently. The way I absorb them is going to be different than the way Mike or Liz or Lily or anyone in here is going to absorb them as well. So we all have different gut bacteria, and the different gut bacteria is, I'm not saying it's a lot, but it's a little bit. It can be 5 to 10% of the nutrients and calories that we absorb. All right? And of course, people aren't great at eyeballing portions. How many of you have actually physically measured out 1 tablespoon of peanut butter? Pretty depressing, right? You can't really spread 1 tablespoon of peanut butter across a piece of bread, can you? No. So understanding portion control, which we're going to go over a little bit later as well, is going to be crucial in your calories in. All right? Questions so far? Yes, Rebecca.
Fiber-rich foods can change calorie absorption. In what direction?
So, good question. So, when we eat fiber, right, think of it's going to decrease some of like the bad, it's going to decrease that we have. So, when we eat fiber, fiber passes through our system undigested, so keeping us fuller longer. And then also think of, you have fiber-rich food, and then we eat a dessert afterwards. Your blood sugar is going to be more regulated, and the cake or dessert you have is going to digest differently after like a fiber-rich food than if you have a cake without it. That cake's going to go towards like immediate energy and absorption rather than digesting longer and a little bit more of it passing through your system.
I was told that there's like insoluble fiber and soluble fiber, but I never see
Yes.
that actually like on my nutrition.
We're going to get a little bit more into fiber and like some of those foods later on. So you can hold that question. But yes, there is soluble and insoluble fiber and a difference between those. Now, calories out. So some ways of like people have tested how many calories we burn every day. There's something called a direct calorimetry. It's the most accurate and the most expensive, so it's never really used. It's like you need to go to like a lab for this. And that is still up to 4% wrong. Indirect one, still used by some doctors, that is up to 45% wrong on how many calories you're needed. Smartwatches and fitness trackers, one of the worst ways to determine your calorie burn, and also not recommended. Anywhere from 20 to 90%. If you don't have that on your wrist, like tight, and put in for your specific height, weight, age, all of that stuff, it is going to be off. All right. Going back to like TDEE, and when we talk about BMR, a lot of people think, oh, I burned 500 calories in this CrossFit workout. One, you probably didn't. Probably burned more like 100 or 200. And then two, they think I can eat 500 calories more today because I burned this. Well, when we factor in BMR and all of that stuff and finding our TDEE later on, you're going to find that that's not an extra 500 calories. That's already factored into your daily expenditure. So, and then hormones, sleep, all of that stuff absolutely changes how we digest things, right? When we're more stressed, we can absorb more calories, burn more calories when we're stressed. And then questions on calories out? A lot of things can affect that. Mostly, biggest thing is overestimating our calorie burn with our exercise, is where people get that mostly wrong.
So you're talking about the inaccuracy of like some of these trackers and all that stuff.
Yes.
What about like the bikes and stuff that we use here, like the rowing machine, the air bikes?
I wouldn't really use those as like this is how many calories I'm burning on that, because again, everybody's different with like how much muscle you have on you compared to how much fat you have on you and things like that. Not the best gauge of calorie burn just by what the screen says. It's not. The screen is not, and the settings aren't fit for you specifically. It's just a general thing on there. So, all right. So dieting, temporary dieting, right? I always say the best diet is the one that works for you. All right. Most diets are temporary. I'm going to go on this 30-day diet. I need to drop a bunch of weight real quick. I'm going to cut out carbs. I'm going to go full carnivore. I'm going to go Mediterranean. I'm going to do whatever this influencer suggested I do. They don't know you. They don't know your sleep habits, your stress, your physical activity, all of that stuff. A diet should be specific to you and what you can do. All right? So when we restrict ourselves on stuff, typically can lead to binging later on. So trying to find like a healthy balance with that stuff. Dieting is meant to be temporary, all right? What we want to look at is lifestyle factors and making your nutrition a journey, all right? It's not something you can do for 30 days and lose the weight. If you don't build healthy habits in 30 days and you just want to lose 30 pounds real quick, well, you're going to find later on what that does for you and what it does for your body and how it's not sustainable long term and why most people just pack that weight back on. I went backwards. So when we diet and we go with, I'm going to run and I'm going to do a lot of cardio and I want to drop a weight very fast. On the left here is what you think you lost. I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. You probably lost a lot of water, a little bit of muscle, and a little bit of fat. So when we eat carbs, we store a lot more water, right? So people say, oh, carnivore diet, we cut out carbs, we do all this, we see a big drop in weight. Well, you're getting rid of a lot of water weight with that. Not a whole lot of fat right off the rip. So going back to the 3,500 calories, right? I say this to people after the holidays. Oh man, the scale's 10 pounds more. Okay, 10 pounds. 3,500 calories to lose 1 pound of fat, 3,500 calories to gain 1 pound of fat. Estimate, right? Based on individual. So, 10 pounds, 35,000 calories excess you need in a 3-day period to put 10 pounds on over your Thanksgiving weekend, right? If you need 2,000 calories a day just to maintain, you need 41,000 calories in 3 days to put on 10 pounds of fat, right? Even if you were just eating cake, that's a lot of cake, right? So most of you are eating protein and some other carbs and things like that. We indulge, we have stuffing and things and cookies and other carbs, so we're gonna store more water, all right? By the end of the week, those 10 pounds will likely be off the scale. If you go back to your regular diet, exercise, everything like that, and consistency, should shed right back off, all right? Questions so far? Hidden flaws of dieting, again, like when you look at dieting, strict diets ignore factors such as sleep, managing stress, and your individual energy requirements overall, all right? Carnivore diet, there's a lot of people, it's a trend right now. Well, carnivore diet is strictly eating meat. Well, think carnivore or keto, anything that is low carb. If you have a physical demand job, laborer, flooring, construction, and you're doing CrossFit, right? If you want to go on those diets, your workouts will probably suffer, right? You're not going to have that energy. Now, some people will say, oh, your body can run off of ketones, which is when your body starts burning fat for energy. Now, when we do that, it takes a while for your body to adapt. It's more than just a week for your body to go, okay, this is good. You're going to have periods of like hormone imbalances, sleep's going to suffer, all of this stuff before your body starts adapting to that. And a lot of people can't get through that before getting into those. And then, of course, you get into, if you're cutting out carbs, you're cutting out things like that, you're cutting out fruits, vegetables, and things like that, then you go back into those nutrient deficiencies that we talked about earlier as well. So trying to eat a balanced diet, being more consistent with that, would be better overall long term. So a lot of people, when they restrict themselves from something, I can't have cake, I can't have cookies, I can't have this candy bar. When they do and can't have it, it typically for a lot of people leads to binging, right? Saving calories for the weekend. I need to be in you want to be in a 500 calorie deficit all week, so you burn 1 pound of fat for that week, and you're like, I'm going to be in a 700 calorie deficit, so on the weekends I can eat a little bit more, right? So you save up 200 more calories, you're weak, you don't get very good sleep, your performance struggles. By the weekend, you're hungry, you're craving food, your hormones are all out of whack. What happens? You binge, you eat more, now you are in a calorie surplus, and you're actually going to start putting on weight. So again, increased food cravings, it's going to reduce your daily activity. You try to cut calories and be drastic. When we talk about BMR, if my BMR is 2,000 calories, right? That's my minimum amount that I need to eat throughout the day just to maintain my bodily functions. It would not be ideal for me to eat under or even at my BMR, all right? Because that's not even including my physical activity, my NEAT, all of that stuff, all right? So mental fatigue, cravings, all of that stuff is going to be affected with some of the diets. So again, choosing something that works for you is going to be crucial with it, all right? Questions so far? Kind of talked about this, why they really fail. Most of it comes to like willpower, trying to like, got to get through this week of very few calories and then I can eat on the weekend. I heard someone talking earlier about cheat meals. I don't like using food as a reward or punishment, or exercise as a punishment. I ate cake, I have to go burn it off, right? That creates a very poor relationship with food. And if you're treating it like I have to burn this stuff off, is now you're treating exercise as not something that you enjoy doing, but something that you have to do because of poor eating habits. And then it's not fun, right? There's an influencer who will be like, I'm gonna eat 2,000 calories of pizza, and now I gotta go burn it off. How far do I have to run to burn it off? And he runs like 10 miles because his fitness tracker said 2,000 calories is what it took, or 20 miles, and then he could burn 2,000 calories. Not how things work. So we don't want to use exercise as a punishment for our diet. Exercise and strength training should be the lifestyle that we have to feel good, to sleep well, to think well, and all of that stuff. And cookies and cake and all of that stuff should just be something that we can enjoy every now and then, right? Support matters, right? A lot of diets, restrict. Well, you have a husband or wife, and you're trying to cut out carbs, and they're not cutting out carbs. That's where your willpower comes in, right? They keep cookies and candy and stuff like that on the counter, and you need to fight that off, right? Then people can stress more over what they're eating and not eating correctly. That is more of a negative impact on your health than having one or two of those cookies. Flexible habits is what we want to develop, which we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Building healthy habits and sustaining those habits is better for a long-term approach. And one of those things being changing your environment, right? So you have that unsupportive person who keeps cookies and candy and chips and everything in view, when really, ideally, the rule of thumb is like, if you buy it, if it's in your house, you're going to eat it, right? Well, let's make it less in our face. Let's put it in the pantry. Let's put it in the back of the fridge. Let's put the things that we should be eating more of, not the only things we need to be eating, but the things we need to be eating more of front and center. Fruit bowl on the counter, right? You reach into the pantry, you have your healthy snacks in the front, your chips and your cookies and everything like that towards the back. So when you have that craving and you open it, what's the first thing you see? Questions so far before we get into what some of these habits look like? All right, so plate method. We talked a little bit about this before the seminar started. So half your plate with fruits and vegetables, a quarter of a plate with protein, and then a quarter of it with starch is kind of a balanced meal, right? And then fats as needed. We're gonna talk about like healthy fats and the types of fats and everything like that later. You know, what to cook with, what you shouldn't be cooking with. But generally, if we can eat like this most of the time, I like 80-20 rule. If we can eat good 80% of the time, we should be able to have good nutrition. Yes.
But it's like strictly like a visual thing. It's not like
It is more of a visual thing, yes. So obviously, the size of your plates and your portion matters as well, right? A heaping scoop of starch, which we're going to talk about portion control here in a little bit, is definitely going to be different than a small little portion. But generally, when it comes to comparing each other, like portion size wise, this is a general where we want to be with it. Hand portions. So our hands are relative to our intake, right? So protein is a palm, as you can see on there, 1 palm size. Now don't necessarily have to look at like women 1 palm, men 2 palms. This is all going to be based on like your needs, your physical activity level, things like that. So, but when you are portioning things, I always recommend, if you've never portioned food out before, do it for a week. It is eye-opening what a tablespoon of peanut butter is, what a 1/4 cup of rice is, what some of these portions are on things that you don't normally look at, right? Hidden things like sugar in barbecue sauce, right? 2 tablespoons of barbecue sauce doesn't go a very long way when you have chicken and broccoli and rice and maybe French fries or whatever that you want to dip into it. 2 tablespoons isn't really a whole lot, right? So looking at things like that and getting a good in your mind of what these portions really are. When we eyeball something, it can be less when it comes to protein than what we should be intaking, and can also be way more than what we need when it comes to fats, carbs, and a little bit more of those non-nutrient dense foods. So fist for vegetables, cup for carbs, and then thumb size for fats. So the oil, the nuts, things like that. Protein intake should remain consistent. Carbs and fat intake are going to be based on activity level, stress, recovery, things like that, and like what you need individually. Questions so far? So meal prep. This isn't really about like cooking everything in advance. All right. There's different ways to meal prep. All right. Instead of focusing on preparing full meals, one of the things I always recommend is just preparing components. Cook a couple different protein sources, maybe some chicken, some beef, things like that. Cook a couple carbs, cook some potatoes, cook some rice, have some vegetables, candy, things like that. That way you have ingredients in your fridge, and it's not like, oh, I have to eat chicken and rice again. Oh, I have to eat beef and broccoli again. Oh, I have to eat this. No, you have components that you can pull out, and you can make, you can add beef to eggs in the morning for, like a breakfast burrito. You can have your bowl, chicken, quinoa, vegetables, things like that. You can take these and you can customize it. You can make some noodles or something like that and have beef and noodles with broccoli. You can do different things when you make ingredients rather than meal prepping the same thing, right? By Wednesday, you're like, I'm tired of chicken and broccoli. And then what happens? Swing by Burger King on the way home because you're tired of chicken and broccoli, right? This helps reduce decision fatigue, improves consistency and then decreases your reliance on the willpower. You can do it once a week. Pick a day. I like Sundays. It's easy for me to make a bunch of stuff, take about an hour, cook a bunch of ingredients, throw it in the fridge. I'm done for the week, for the most part, right? If you are cooking every day, I come home, cook dinner, I make a vegetable, protein, make an extra portion. If you're making burgers, make an extra burger, make a little bit extra protein, something that you can throw into your breakfast in the morning or have for lunch the next day, right? You don't have to cook all day. If you're used to going to the grocery store every day after work and picking up stuff for dinner, and that's something that you do, cool. But try to prepare something for dinner that you can use the next day for breakfast or lunch and make it easier for you that way. And that way that meal's in there, pull it out, and it's right there for you. And they don't have to be perfect, right? Balance throughout the week, not just one single meal. Questions? Yes.
Is there a better is there a better time of day to like eat protein or eat your carbs or whatever? Like
Timing?
Yeah.
Protein, I always recommend spreading it out through the day. And I think we're going to talk about this a little bit later on too, but say you need 200 grams of, it's a lot, 200 grams of protein throughout the day, right? Don't think you need to eat huge and try to stuff it all in one meal, right? Balance it throughout the day. Now, of course, protein is going to help keep you fuller longer, right? So eating protein, this is going to be some things of like, we're going to talk about like when you should eat, how much you should eat and stuff like that a little bit later. But spreading it out throughout the day, that way, consistent energy throughout the day. When you eat a lot of protein, anybody eat a lot of protein, you go to like one of those Brazilian steakhouses and then you start sweating because you've had a lot. When you eat a lot of protein, the internal temperature of your body rises because we're using so much of those calories to digest that food. The internal temperature of your body is increasing, causing you to sweat, right? So you can have a lot of protein. Now your body will utilize that protein. Of course, if you've chewed it properly, didn't swallow whole chunks, all of that stuff that we talked about earlier. But you also don't want to be like weighed down, right, by eating too much protein. So if you're having 4 meals throughout the day, divvy that up, the protein, all 4 meals. Your carbs should be around your activity levels. If you're sedentary throughout the day, think of like fiber and things that are going to keep you fuller longer. Fruits, apples, stuff like that, that's going to keep you fuller with fiber and the nutrients. And then when you're going for a workout, it's those simple carbs, right? Now, we're going to talk about a little bit of meal timing a little bit later on, but based on your activity levels, depends on when you're going to eat the food. So again, this is not like eating the same meals every day, spending hours cooking, or a test of discipline. It's just something that you should be able to use as a tool to help you stay consistent throughout the week. So, habit stacking. What is habit stacking, right? Think of something, a habit you already do throughout the day, right? In the morning when I wake up, I brush my teeth, all right? What habit can you put on top of brushing your teeth? Before I brush my teeth, I drink a bottle of water, right? Because I need to get hydrated, I drink a bottle of water. Before I make my coffee in the morning, while it's brewing, I drink a bottle of water. I take my creatine. I do X when I do Y, all right? That is habit stacking, all right? Attaching small intentional behavior to something you already do consistently, all right? Habits work best when they're anchored to something predictable that you do every day and you're not relying on motivation, all right? So, again, after I pour my coffee, I drink a full glass of water. When I grocery shop, I start in the protein section. When I cook dinner, I make an extra portion for tomorrow. Stuff that you're already doing. After I finish dinner, I take a 10-minute walk. I always recommend that. A little bit of movement after a meal helps with digestion, helps you feel less bloated afterwards. So after you have that turkey on Thanksgiving, get out and walk, less likely to feel ugh on the couch when you're watching football, right? So, willpower and motivation, right? So, habits over willpower and motivation. Willpower is limited and heavily influenced by your sleep, your stress, and your fatigue. So, you didn't get a whole lot of sleep, you come into work, you're stressed, you haven't eaten a whole lot, cravings go up, you're more likely, I don't want to cook, I'm going to swing by the drive-thru on my way home from work, right? Motivation is emotional, driven and desired act, and is often temporary. It fluctuates based on mood and circumstances, right? All of these things change and fluctuate all the time. When you can build a habit, it reduces your decision-making, and it removes the need to rely on your motivation. All right? Now, it takes a little bit of work to build a habit, but we're going to get into that. So, one change rule. Change one thing at a time. How many times you were like, I need to do this, I need to mow the lawn, I need to do this, I have 15 things I need to do, right? And you try multitasking, or you're at work and you're like, I have this project, I have this project, I have this project, and you're like, I'm going to do 10% of this, and 5% of this, and 10% of this, and by the end of the week, everything's half done. Instead of focusing on one thing, finishing it, getting it right, and moving on, right? That's what we want to think about when it comes to habit stacking. Get a habit, develop that habit, be good at it, then choose the next one, right? So, how do we do that? What habit should we choose? Well, what's your low-hanging fruit? What is the one thing that you struggle with the most? Is it your protein intake? Is it your sleep? Is it your stress management? What is the one thing, if you changed it today, will greatly affect you moving forward, right? I get poor sleep. Poor sleep, I'm cranky in the morning, I have cravings, my work suffers, my relationship suffers, everything suffers when I get crap sleep. Okay, let's change your sleep, right? So, sleep. Trying to maintain a consistent wake-up time or going to bed time, right? If you have a hard, I am going to bed at 9 o'clock, go to bed at 9 o'clock. It's a start, right? Reducing screen time before bed. There's a rule, we call it 3-2-1. 3 hours before bed is the last time you eat a meal. 2 hours before bed is the last time you drink fluids. If you're thirsty, sips of water, not glasses or cans of soda or whatever drink you're consuming. And 1 hour before bed, you cut out screens. That's going to give your circadian rhythm a chance to just say, it's time for bed, I need to relax. You're not looking at bright lights and it's going to say, it's nighttime, it's good time to go to sleep, right? So, trying to follow that rule should help. Talking about sleep and when to eat, right? If we eat 30 minutes before we go to bed and we have a protein and fiber-rich meal 30 minutes before we lay into bed, your body's internal temperature is going to rise. When we sleep, we need it to drop. So, you're not necessarily gaining weight because you ate late. It's more that calories in, calories out when it comes to when we eat, which we'll talk about more later. But it's more of when you eat will disrupt your sleep. Your sleep gets disrupted, you don't sleep well, you don't sleep long. Snowball effect the next morning, right? Stress. Take a 5-minute walk, same time every day. You get a 30-minute lunch at work, take 20 minutes to eat your lunch, go for a 10-minute walk, right? Habit stacking with that. Use breathing before meetings. I have a 1 o'clock meeting every day. At 12:45 to help relieve my stress, I'm going to do a simple breathing method to help calm me down. That way when I go into my meeting and my boss is talking all this stuff that I don't want to hear and stress about, I'm a little bit more calm and relaxed. I'm a little bit more perceptive of what they're going to say. Meditation, different things like that, all right? Nutrition, kind of talked about this as we've been going. Start by adding protein to 1 meal a day, right? If we lack protein and we try to hit protein every single meal, when I wake up in the morning and I have breakfast, I am going to focus on a high protein breakfast. Now, a high protein breakfast is not 2 eggs and a piece of toast, right? We want to have a little bit more than that. If we can aim for, 25 grams of protein in a breakfast, we're in pretty good shape. Eggs have about 6 grams of protein each. So, but we'll get in a little bit more of like what to eat later on. But having that healthy snack, bringing the healthy snacks with you to work. If you find yourself going to the vending machine at work periodically, buy those healthy snacks. If you're allowed to, keep them at your desk. Have them handy so it's right there for you instead of walking to that vending machine. Movement. Try to hit a daily step minimum. If you're sedentary throughout the day and you're not moving a whole lot, where can you get some steps in? After dinner, I take a walk, right? When I wake up in the morning, I'm going to do 5 minutes of mobility. 5 minutes, right? I'm going to do 5 minutes of the stretching and this, that. Eventually, that will start to snowball. Maybe it'll be, oh man, I feel good. I'm going to do 10 minutes now, right? Down the road, a little bit here, a little bit there, will stack up over time. Take the stairs, park further away at work, walk the 100 yards instead of trying to get the spot closest to the door. Little things like that will add up over time. Questions so far? Yes.
I drink like all through the night. I mean, I keep a water bottle. I get it. I feel like I go through a water bottle at like 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. I mean, is that a problem? Or do you think it just disrupts the
Again, following that like 2 hours, if you're like, I go to bed at 9 o'clock, at 7 o'clock, we want to limit how much we drink. So take those sips when you feel thirsty, but try not to slam bottles of water or glasses of water, right? Because then we're going to have to wake up at midnight and have to go to the bathroom. We wake up, we turn lights on, it's bright, our body goes, it's daytime, it's really hard to go back to sleep, right? So those are the types of things that we want to try to avoid. If you can not turn on lights and use the bathroom, right? Which for guys, that might mean sitting instead of standing when you pee, but that's a little thing that goes a long way if you're trying to go back to sleep because you wanted 3 more hours of sleep, right? So, we haven't really talked about how much to eat. So, some simple ways to do it is multiply your goal weight by 12, all right? 12 is just a general ballpark number of calories per pound for it to be in a calorie deficit. Now, this does not account for your individual differences in your metabolism, BMR, things like that, or your activity levels. This is just a general ballpark. If tracking food and all of that stuff is stressful for you, taking this and multiplying it by your goal weight. If you're 200 pounds and you want to be 180 pounds, multiply 180 by 12. That is a ballpark of where you need to be. After that, what you do, weigh yourself every week, same time on Monday. You wake up, you use the bathroom before you eat and drink, weigh yourself, right? We want to look at other metrics. How are my clothes fitting while the scale drops, right? If I'm trying to gain weight, build muscle, one, am I eating to support that? Am I doing the muscle building? Everything that I need to do to gain muscle. Again, how are my clothes fitting? while that scale drops. If you're trending in the right direction, then you're doing okay. Even if it's a couple pounds, 1 pound here and there over time. You had a question, Sonny? That is for a general calorie deficit. Now, we're going to go over much better ways to do that than this. This is just a low stress ballpark, some of the ways some people will determine a deficit. Again, this is if you want to be in a calorie deficit, because if I'm 200 pounds and I want to be 180 pounds, if I multiply 200 by 12, that's going to be about my maintenance. I want to go to my goal weight and multiply that by 12. That's where I'm in that deficit.
Number you get is how many calories you should eat a day.
Ballpark, yes. Now, that does not include your movement, all of that, your NEAT, exercise, and all of that. That does not factor that in. So we're going to go over a couple more ways to do this. Mindful eating. All right, if you want to lose weight, eat until you're about 80% full. But that doesn't mean sitting there and scarfing down a meal in 2 minutes and walking away. That means sitting there, eating mindfully, paying attention to hunger cues. It takes your body about 20 minutes to realize that it's full. So put the fork down between bites, chew, swallow, all of that. You want to gain weight? Eat a little bit more than when you're past full. Don't stuff your gullet and be miserable afterwards, right? But want to maintain, eat until you're satisfied. Again, this is a little bit more difficult for some people because it takes some mental, I need to sit and be present with my food. I'm a busy person. I have 3 kids. I don't have time for that, right? Those are things that you need to take into account with mindful eating. But I will recommend, if you have time, one time, pick a meal where you can actually sit, cut your meat, chew it, set the fork down, and pay attention. No distractions, no TV, no nothing. Sit and eat. You would be surprised at what you learn with some mindful eating, all right? Excuse me. But this does take a little bit of stress away from tracking food through MyFitnessPal and stuff like that. Which we'll talk about tracking food here in a little bit as well. All right, finding your daily expenditure. Now, again, everything we're going over today, you're going to get a packet with all of this information as well in it, all right, including this. Now, this formula is considered one of the most accurate and widely accepted ways to find your BMR. So, what we want to do first is find your BMR using this formula. All right, takes your weight, height, age, all of that into account. Now, you see it on there. I'm not going to go over that exactly, but this is how you find your BMR. You do need to convert because that is in kilograms and centimeters, converting pounds and inches, all right, to figure that out. You need to do that conversion. Then you take your activity factor, all right? Sedentary, you don't do a whole lot. BMR times 1.2. Light activity, where a lot of people are. Light exercise, sports 1 to 3 days a week. There's a activity factor there. Moderate, where most people are, all right, 3 to 5 days a week. CrossFit, even a desk job. Maybe you're moving around a little bit. Maybe you're sedentary but work out 5 days a week, or you're more active and you don't work and you work out 2 days a week, right? In that packet, I'm going to have more of a description on where your activity level should be. But most people fall into light active or moderate active, all right? This is where a lot of people will be like, oh, I come to CrossFit 5 days a week and I'm walking 5,000 steps a day. You are not very active, all right? Very active is hard exercise, sports, think high school basketball players every day and hard labor jobs and things like that. And then super active, very demanding physical jobs and things like that, a higher activity level, all right? Again, they're going to have more of description of that. Then we're going to multiply those. So we have a guy, 40 years old. This is, if you come at 5 o'clock in the morning, you might know who this is kind of based off of. 40-year-old, he's 175 pounds, he's 5'8", he CrossFits 4 or 5 days a week, and he's actually got 2 jobs, all right? I went on the lower end, and I put him as very active. He can eat almost 3,000 calories a day. Now, this is his BMR, this is how much he moves, all of that stuff. So, if he takes that 2,800 calories, and he looks at his Garmin watch and it says that he burned 500 calories and he's like, I can eat 3,300 calories now, he's gonna gain weight. If that's his goal, great. But if he wants to lose weight, but 175 pounds, he probably doesn't want to, unless he's looking at packing on muscle, he shouldn't follow his Garmin watch, right? Again, you're gonna have all of this in that packet, but this is where he's going to be a pretty good range for where he should be total daily expenditure and how many calories he needs to maintain his body weight at his activity levels, right? Remember, multiplying by 12 did not take into account how much activity you're actually doing. That's just a general ballpark for fat loss. So, the things that have the negative effect, again, never a good idea to eat at your BMR. You figure your BMR out, my BMR is 1,500 calories. I want to be in a weight loss. Never a good idea to eat at your BMR or less. That is your minimum calories you need to function, all right? And if you're like, oh, I'm gonna eat 1,600 calories, again, your NEAT, your EAT, all of that stuff needs to be taken into account as well, all right? Again, avoiding carbs altogether, demonizing them, not that great. We talked about the smartwatch. Don't think that your number has to be perfect every day. You're in a 200 calorie deficit one day, you're in a 100 calorie surplus the next day, you're in a 500 calorie deficit one day, you're in a 300 calorie surplus the next day. It should all balance out. Don't look at it as a daily thing, look at it as a weekly thing, all right? Again, we talked about if you try to save your calories for the weekend, think of it as a full week, how much you should be consuming. And then biggest thing is people are impatient. If you lose 2, 3, 4 pounds in a month of fat, you're doing pretty good, all right? It's a healthy weight loss if you're looking at burning fat. So, how much to eat? Protein, depending on your needs, 0.6 to 1 gram per pound of your body weight. Now, people who are overweight, obese, right? Pete, I'm 400 pounds. I can't eat 400 grams of protein. No, you shouldn't be eating that. Goal weight, all right? So, if you're lower end at 0.6, sedentary, trying to maintain, you go on lower end, higher end, fat loss, higher training volume, trying to stay fuller longer. Carbs. Now, protein has 4 calories per gram. So when you're trying to figure out how many calories you eat a day, protein is about 4 calories per gram of weight. Carbs, 4 calories per gram. 1.5 to 4 grams per pound of body weight per day. Again, lower end if you're less active, higher end if you're more active. Fats, 9 calories per gram, all right? This should be about 20 to 35% of your daily calories, again, depending on your needs, all right? Again, it's gonna support your hormones, your joints, nutrient absorption, all of that stuff. Water, starting point, half your body weight in ounces. More active, increase that. Less active, stay there. You sweat a lot, heart rate's up, increase it. Fiber, 15 grams per 1,000 calories is a good starting point. If you need to consume 3,000 calories with your overall expenditure, then you should be eating Anybody? 45 grams of fiber. Alcohol. If you're tracking food in MyFitnessPal or anything like that, people are like, Pete, what do I count alcohol as? 7 calories per gram. All right, this can either go towards your carbs or your fats. You can even split it half and half. All right, depending on what your goal is and where your levels are. All right. Questions so far? Yeah.
What's the alcohol?
Yes.
Is it true that if you're alcohol's like a poison or whatever, you're not supposed to?
Yeah.
So like, if you drink alcohol, that it like counteracts your ability to burn fats and things because your body's not focused.
Yeah. So, yeah, alcohol is a toxin, it's a poison, right? You consume too much of it, it affects nutrient absorption, it affects digestion, it affects all kinds of things in your body, right? What's that? Dehydration, absolutely. So they are typically beers, things like that. Yes, there are some low carb one, but they can be higher in calories as well. So your fruity drinks that you like to drink on the beach can be higher in sugar content, things like that. So you have high alcohol, high sugar, heat. You got a recipe for dehydration, right? So limiting your alcohol, all right? Now, I'm not going to say don't drink alcohol, but depending on what your goals are, depends on how much alcohol you should be drinking. So it definitely affects your performance, your cognitive function in the mornings, how much you drink, all that stuff. So if you want optimal performance, nutrient absorption, all of that good stuff, then limiting to no alcohol is really what you want to do. The more you consume, obviously, you're more carbs, more increases cravings, right? How many times you have a few too many and your inhibitions go out the door, and then you're stopping at Burger King on the way home from the bar, and now you're eating unhealthy foods because your cravings go up. What was it?
Taco Bell.
Taco Bell, yeah. So you've all been there before, right? So alcohol will take that willpower and that motivation, and it tanks. So definitely leads to poor decisions in more than one way. All right, what to eat. So some of the protein sources, again, you're going to get all of the stuff in here. So we want to eat more of like the lower fat proteins. Turkey breast, venison, shrimp, tempeh, salmon, some of those things. Some you get into like the processed foods, protein powders. Now, we don't want to use protein powders as our only source of protein. If you struggle to eat enough protein in the day because you're full, Pete, I just can't get 150 grams of protein in. Protein powders are a good thing to go to. Watch your sugar intake when it comes to protein powders, how much sugar is in it, especially if you're taking more than one of them a day, and when you're taking that protein. But it's a good way to supplement not getting enough protein in. Mix it with water or something like that, and it's easy, digestible, 20 to 30 grams of protein. All right? And then eating a little bit of like beef jerky. Ribeye, delicious, but if you eat it every day, unless you want to gain weight, those are the things that are higher in fat. All right? And then, of course, like fried meats. When it comes to like protein bars, we talked about that 10 grams of protein per 100 calories. I'm gonna throw them in front of the bus and on the train tracks, but Gatorade protein bars are like one of the worst things you can have, right? Very little protein in them compared to how many calories are there. And a ton of sugar, absolutely. So if you're eating 2 of them a day, trying to be healthy, right? Carb sources. Now we have low glycemic, moderate, and high. So the low are things that are going to be longer digesting things, right? Keeps you fuller longer. Moderate, right? So low glycemic, think, a couple hours, like 2 hours before your workout, fueling yourself. Moderate, about an hour before a workout. And then high glycemic is like 30 minutes or less to give you that quick energy getting in there, right? Volume carbs, these are nutrient dense and very low in calories, all right? If someone says, don't eat any of these things, they're gonna make you fat, or fruit makes you fat, like, you need to stop listening to them. Fruit, I don't know a lot of my friends who are fat because they eat too much fruit. These you can eat more of because they're nutrient dense and very low in calories. So great things to add to your meals or side dishes, right? Again, you're going to have all of these lists and the stuff that I'm going to provide for you afterwards. Fats. So again, watching portion controls on this. You don't need a whole big portion of fat to get a lot of calories, all right? So pecans, almonds, extra virgin olive oil, cooking with extra virgin olive oil. When you get into the little stuff, higher processed, higher fats, more pro-inflammatory, not anti-inflammatory. Again, we need some of those pro-inflammatories, but we want to limit how much we have. Fiber. Some examples of where you can get fiber from. All right? Fruits, vegetables, barley, quinoa, seeds, things like that. Questions so far? Yes.
On the protein powder, do you suggest the protein powders or like
Like Fairlife or like the,
whatever.
yeah. Again, checking how much protein's in them. Whey protein is usually one of like the better digesting things. When it comes to any of the food that we're talking about, protein powders, all of that stuff, is what digests well for you, right? Simple carbs, right? I might digest a banana well and be like, I can eat a ripe banana before I go to eat or before I go to work out and I feel good. Someone else might not digest well for them. It can sit in there and just like disrupts them and then their workout suffers. So it's hard like recommending protein powders or like drinks or anything like that. It's look at the protein content and what else is in it. Is it high in sugar? Is it high in fats? What else is in there? And look at those different things. And based on what you need and your goals, is it right for me? But if there's 200 calories, 250 calories, and there's only 10 grams of protein, it's not a lot of protein in there. So everything nowadays wants to say protein packed. There's protein everything. There's protein mac and cheese. There's protein bars. There's protein whatever they want to come up with next. Check the content. It can say protein packed, but if that ratio is not there, it's trash for your protein. All right, injury. 3 stages your body goes through. Inflammation, when you're first hurt. Pain, swelling, redness. These are when you want to eat those avocado, salmon, the anti-inflammatory foods. Herbs and spices like turmeric, garlic, and all that stuff will help. Eat less pro-inflammatory foods, the processed garbage, fried foods, stuff like that. Saturated fats, vegetable oils, trans fats, all of that stuff is not going to be good in your healing process. Then stages 2 and 3, when your body's replacing the damaged tissues and new blood flow is going in there, new blood supply, and the stronger tissues are coming in, making sure you're getting enough protein, balance your dietary fats, and then eating your carbs enough for your activity levels, all right? And then, so again, some supplements, A and C, and then things like zinc and copper will help recovering from any kind of injury that you have. When you're sick, people ask, what do I eat when I'm sick? Well, if you're hungry, eat. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Make sure you drink lots of fluids. Usually you're dehydrated. Prebiotics and probiotics are very good. There's some examples up there of that. Chicken soup, provide you with like electrolytes, anti-inflammatory. There's a bunch of examples on here of things that can help you when you're sick, get your nutrients. When you're sick, not always a good idea to work out. Your body's under stress. You need to use and conserve that energy to heal yourself, not add stress working out. All right, so if you're deathly ill and you feel like you can't move, stay in bed. Once you start feeling better, activity levels should match how well you feel, right? If a walk around your block gasses you out, that's about as much as you should be doing. Questions before we move on to this? All right. When you should eat, should you eat breakfast? If you function well during the day and you're hungry in the morning, eat breakfast. If you eat breakfast high in protein, help you keep you fuller longer. If you can put a little bit of fiber in there, great. Gives you that balanced energy throughout the day. If you train in the morning, usually a pretty good idea. If you can eat something a little bit before, again, simple carbs, high glycemic, before your training, and then eating after, which we're going to get into here in a moment. But what matters most, protein intake early in the day. Establish a consistent eating pattern. If you always eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, and then you go without eating at 8 o'clock in the morning, your body's adapting to your needs and what you're doing. So if your schedule changes for any reason, and then you can't eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, for a while, you're going to feel really hungry at 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And then try to avoid long stretches with no food to avoid binging later on. What you should eat to fuel workouts. Pre-workout, 1 to 3 hours before training when possible. All right? Focus on the carbs for fuel and protein for muscle support. Little to no fat and fiber. Those are going to sit in your stomach and you will be less effective and just weighed down for this. All right? So protein and fruit, Greek yogurt and berries, rice or oats and protein, things like that. Again, high glycemic, closer, low glycemic when you're that 1 to 3 hours away. If you're training first thing in the morning, try eating less than an hour before training. Full meal, again, isn't really needed. Questions on any of these? Yes?
I have a friend of mine, that's home and she is on fasting.
Okay.
She also wants to work out in gain muscle, but she does like an 8-hour fast or whatever.
Okay. Again, when it comes to any kind of diet, fasting being one of them, is it going to support your needs and your goals? When people fast for 18 hours and they do that 1 meal a day, if you want to gain muscle and you need to get your eating around your fasting time, around your training time, right? So if you work out at 5:30, 4:30, 5:30, which you typically do, right? Your fasting should be ending around 3, 4 o'clock so you can fuel yourself for the workouts, or you're not going to get as good of a workout in. Also, if you're trying to hit 150 grams of protein in a day to build muscle, that's a pretty big meal to get in a short window, right? So those are things that you want to consider when you think of all of these ways to lose weight. Now, does it work for some people? Absolutely. Right? Did they struggle early on with it? More than likely, yes. Right? So can you get past that? You need a lot of like willpower and motivation to get through that like initial, your body adapts to what you're doing and she might feel great and function great off of it. Some people it just doesn't fit their lifestyle. Right? So you want to try it? By all means. But anyone that wants to try a diet, I'm always willing to go, okay, what are your goals? Is it going to support them? And what are the pitfalls to it based on what your goals are?
Other than that, I heard a while ago that you're supposed to try to eat protein like within 15, or you have better absorption of protein.
After workout? So, oh, that wasn't on the next slide. The training window. When protein powder first came out, they wanted to sell more protein powder. So they're like, hey, how do we get all these gym bros to eat more protein powder? Oh, the anabolic window, you need to get protein in immediately after your workout. It's the best way to do it. Well, it got everyone bringing their protein powders to the gym and increasing protein powder. If you can eat up to 2 hours before a workout, you're fine. All right? It may be a little bit more optimal closer to the end of it, but if you're eating the right foods up to 2, even 3 hours after a workout. Now, you burned a lot of energy, you did Murph in here, right? You're probably not gonna wanna wait 3 hours before you eat. Your cravings will skyrocket, right? And you're more apt to eat the junk food 3 hours later than if you went home within an hour and you ate the right foods to replenish yourself, right? So, we talked about fueling yourself for a workout. Can you fuel yourself the night before? Absolutely. Eat carbs. They're stored as glycogen in the muscles. If you eat some carbs at night before dinner, they will be in your system to use the next day, all right? So chicken, fish, eggs, and lean meat, rice, potatoes, some pasta, oats, and fruit, and then water and electrolytes you can even have the night before. If you're waking up and you wake up, have some water and you leave for the gym. If you're one of those people who it's like, I get up, I go to the bathroom, and I leave for the gym, fuel yourself the night before. All right? If you're one that wakes up 2 hours before you have to go to the gym, then you can wait a little bit longer and have those small little snacks and meals beforehand. After workouts, we just talked about. So, protein to support your recovery, build those muscles. Carbs to replenish your energy stores. Fluids and electrolytes, again, if you sweat a lot. All right? This is, again, does not need to be immediate or perfect. Consistency matters more over time. Any more questions on those?
When it comes to burning of carbs, protein, is it protein? It's more energy needed for your body to burn protein than the other.
Yes.
Is there, so I guess, would that correlate then to like my body will burn off sugar first and then, or everything kind of, your body just tries to burn it at the same time, but like.
If you have energy stored and then you consume a banana, right? Your body needs to digest that banana and then distribute energy. You're going to use stored first stuff and then that banana. So that's going to help, you know what I mean? That's going to help. So anything that you have stored is going to be used first because it's used immediately. And then it's going to go towards stuff that you've just recently eaten because it could still be in your digestive system processing. Does that make sense? All right, snacks. Yes, eat snacks. We need them. All right, shouldn't have to go over this a whole lot, but best snacks, proteins, and the right carbs, and protein and fiber. All right, Greek yogurt and fruit, protein bar, banana, cottage cheese, crackers. Again, based on your needs, what are you fueling yourself for? Are you sitting at a desk all day, sedentary until 4:30? Then your Snickers bar is probably not the best snack for you, right? Something with like some protein and fiber to keep you fuller, longer energy. When should you eat dinner? Again, go to that 3-2-1 rule that we talked about when it comes to sleep. Try to eat 3 hours before you're trying to go to bed if you can. If not, plan your meals, bigger meals in the morning, smaller meal at dinner. That way it's digested and not inhibiting your sleep later on, still being digested, all right? Try to avoid skipping dinner after hard training. If you're training at 5:30, you still want to eat something afterwards. Simple rule, if you train that day, dinner should help your recovery, not make up for what you didn't eat earlier. Questions before we get into this? I want to make this one quick, all right? We got about 10 minutes before it's noon. All right, so there's a little weight loss journey. All right, Susie and Fran, for the sake of this, they're both married with children. They both work in an office all day, and they don't do anything. So they're very sedentary, and they both want to lose weight. All right, Susie decides to go online to her favorite Instagram person, Becky, and see what she does to look so good. And she says, the only way to lose weight is fasted cardio, and carbs are the devil. All right? Well, Becky doesn't know Susie, what she wants to do, what her lifestyle factors are, any of that. But she's going to follow her recommendations anyway because she looks phenomenal in a bikini. Fran goes and sees a credible personal trainer who gets to know her, knows her lifestyle factors, factors in her BMR, talks to her about nutrition, talks about the well-balanced diet, all of that stuff. So Susie is going to run 5 or 6 days a week, skip breakfast, low-cal meals. I want a big calorie deficit. I want to drop weight right now. Fran's going to strength train, add some steps throughout the day, eat whole natural foods, not demonize anything, prioritize protein, some of these basic things that we just talked about. Their daily energy expenditures beforehand. So Susie, 10 pounds more than Fran right now. All right, she's 180 pounds. With her new energy, she should be eating 2,300 calories with her exercise. Fran, 2,200 calories, so a little bit less, because she weighs a little bit less. During the first month, Susie drops weight quickly, right? Remember the picture earlier? She's going to be dropping a lot more water than anything, all right? So she feels encouraged because the scale dropped quick, but her body is beginning to shed muscle because she's not giving it that muscle building signal. Fran, weight hasn't changed anything. She could be discouraged because the scale hasn't dropped at all. But she noticed her clothes are starting to fit differently. Her nervous system's adapting. She's building muscle. She's giving her that body that I need to keep this tissue signal. After months 2 and 3, Susie, muscle loss really begins to matter here. All right? Lower muscle, lower BMR. All right? Metabolic adaptation kicks in. So the same running pace she had, she could run 3 miles and burn 300 calories. Now she runs 3 miles, she burns 150 calories. So now she has to run more to burn more. Her body adapted to that, right? It's not bad. She's more efficient, but she's also losing BMR. BMR dropped, more efficient running, more running, less eating. All right? Fran, gaining lean mass. All right? So she hasn't trained, so she, in these 3 months, could have realistically put on 3 or more pounds of muscle. So, what does that look like? New BMR after 3 months. Fran went from 1,500 to a little over 1,400. Her BMR dropped. She's got 100 calories less a day in just her BMR. All right? Not even taking into account her energy. Fran, on the other hand, has gone up almost 100 in her BMR. So just how much body her burns naturally, she could eat more calories just because she's put on some muscle. All right? After 6 months, and this is just hypothetical, realistic, again, everybody's different, but in this situation, Susie dropped 15 pounds, right? Her new weight is 165, it used to be 180. But of that 15 pounds, she lost 10 pounds of muscle, 5 pounds of fat and water. Her BMR is now 1,300 calories when it used to be over 15. Her BMR alone she can now eat 200 calories less than what she was when she was 15 pounds heavier. Fran, on the other hand, she dropped 10 pounds, so she weighs 160 pounds now. She weighs 5 pounds less than Susie, right? She's gained 8-10 pounds of muscle. Realistic, all right, especially for a beginner. She's lost some fat. Her BMR has gone up. Go up from anywhere from 100 to 200, depending on the person, even 300 calories it can possibly go up in 6 months. So now she is smaller than Susie, but she can eat 200 calories more a day. Wouldn't that be ideal? Right? So, again, her new exercise, 2,000 calories she can eat. It used to be 2,300, 2,400. Now she's 400 calories less than what she used to be able to eat to maintain with her exercise. Now she has to eat 2,000 calories just to maintain. So now she wants to be in a calorie deficit. She's got to run more or eat less. Fran, on the other hand, hers has gone up 150. That's low end. 200 calories now she can eat. Her weight loss, her I want to burn fat, can now be her used to be her maintain, now it's I want to burn fat level. So she can eat the same amount of food that she used to be able to, and now she's losing fat. Right? Wouldn't that be ideal? So, after the 6 months, Susie needs to eat way less and move more to lose fat. Fran, on the other hand, she doesn't have to be in that big of a calorie deficit to lose weight. She doesn't have to starve herself, right? Questions on that? Does that make sense to everybody? Boost muscle, boost BMR, right? Muscle is the long-term, health. Yes?
For someone who is not really working out at all and they're just doing a diet,
Yes.
they need to they need to eat their BMR thing
Yes.
or a little bit more
Mhm.
in order to not lose muscle, or will they automatically kind of lose muscle if you're not working?
So if you're not working out and you want to maintain your muscle, you need to make sure you're getting adequate protein. All right? Now, adding some resistance training, even 1 day a week resistance training has shown that you can preserve muscle mass with 1 day. All right? Preserve. Maintain what you have with 1 day a week of strength training. You can do 10 minutes every day instead of one 60-minute session and be good. So if you can do 10 minutes every day of band work, some kind of resistance training, you can preserve or even build muscle if you've never really worked out before. So as long as you're getting adequate protein. You're not getting adequate protein, your body is not going to have the amino acids, what they have in there, to build that muscle or even maintain it. But, yes.
Not a question. I know that I did OTF.
What's that?
OTF.
Yes.
A lot of times. So I was Susie.
Yes.
Okay? So I've been doing brand now.
Yes.
Okay. I have definitely increased my BMR.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. About 90%. But I've also gained weight. I have not lost weight.
Okay.
I've maintained it. Gained weight.
Sure.
I'm right there.
Yeah.
Gained weight. Okay. I have about 10 pounds on me. But I'm not gaining anymore. I mean, like I gained.
Uh-huh.
BMR went up.
You've plateaued.
On my way.
Yeah. So BMR's gone up. Great. You can eat more than, yeah. So how are your clothes fitting, right? If the scale's not moving, you can still be building muscle and losing fat. So if your clothes are fitting better, right, and the scale staying the same.
But it's mostly.
So, well, that's the thing. If we build more muscle, right, then we can get tighter in some of those areas. Legs have some of the bigger muscles, so your legs grow a little bit from muscle. Like they could be a little bit tighter there, right? Growing the biceps, sleeves are a little bit
Is
tighter.
there any way that I can get back to
Lower weight and not lose. Yeah, so if you're going to be in a calorie deficit, maintaining as much protein, keeping protein a priority, but you can eat more now than you used to. Drop the calories. It doesn't have to be significant, right? Based on your energy levels and what you need, you could drop 200-300 calories a day. It's going to take a little bit longer than dropping 500-700 calories a day, but at a 600 calorie deficit, how do you feel during the day? How do your workouts feel? Are you losing sleep? All of that stuff, right? So if you can be patient with a smaller calorie deficit, long term, eating what you need to fuel yourself and still enjoying your snacks and your cakes and not feeling guilty having ice cream with your children, like those kinds of things, then a smaller calorie deficit long term is easier to sustain and maintain than drastically cutting carbs, right? When we drastically cut things, that's when like bad habits tend to sink in, and we develop bad habits during that. We carry those bad habits after a diet, right? All right. So, Susie, her NEAT significantly reduced. Less energy, she doesn't move as much. Running burns more calories. Her hunger's high, her fatigue's high. She now has to do more work. I feel like I have to work so hard just to maintain, is her thoughts. Fran feels more strong and more in control, all right? Her strength gains maintain metabolic demand. Her diet feels sustainable. She's happier long term. All right, so real quick, because we're at about noon. Choice and action. I put the 3 frogs on here. Ever heard of there's 3 frogs on a log? 2 make the decision to jump in the water. How many frogs are left on the log? Anyone? Huh? 3. Yes. Why? Exactly. They decided they didn't take action. So, you can make a decision to lose weight and change your life or include activity or change your sleep, but until you actually start doing something, nothing is going to change. So, that's where like the willpower and everything and like the habit stacking we talked about starts to come in. Start small and go from there. You start small and you start building habits, it will start snowballing in a good direction if you can sustain good habits, all right? You try to do too much at one time, that's when things fall off. You get stressed. I can't handle this. It's too much. Screw it. I'm done, right? Whoop. Went too fast. So mastering the habits and discipline, again, reducing friction, creating those healthy habits. The habits promote the positive actions. Again, that snowballing effect. Habits eliminate the repeated decisions, turning beneficial behaviors into automatic responses. It's like walking and breathing, right? You don't think about walking and breathing. At least, I hope not. Your body just does it naturally. These should be things, your fruit's there, front and center. When you wake up in the morning, you're grabbing that orange as you walk out the door as your snack at work, right? It's things that are just, it's second nature to you from now on, right? So, redefining true success, what is that? It's defined by the ability to recover quickly after setbacks. Hey, I went to Burger King and I had some food. You know what? I'm going to get the next meal. I want to make sure I get enough protein, I fuel myself properly, and I get right back on track. The I fell off the train, wheels are broken, I'm going to start back on Monday. Well, it's Thursday. What do you mean you're going to start back on Monday? Right? Like, you're going to wait 4 days to get back on track? No, get back on track now. Keep those healthy habits going. You start on Monday. Your willpower